All right, Dom, welcome to the Meat Mafia podcast, dude.
Pleasure to be here, brother. Really appreciate you having me on.
So pumped to have you. We were hanging out last night too.
We were hanging out last night.
Which is great. So I just recorded with Matt, and an hour ago we had a great combo, and it was so cool just seeing like his vision and what he and Leo put together. Like, I wish more people could tap into that. Like just that like closeness and connectedness of that group of guys, like all random, but we just had that meal together and we're able to like share a great experience. Something powerful to it.
There's definitely something powerful to it. What do you think is, I'm going right to asking you a question.
I love it.
I feel like there's so many people that I've talked to recently, and myself going through this. Like I had this feeling in my gut growing up. Like I was always supposed to like do something that was like meaningful, that was going to be impactful, that was going to bring value to the world, that was non-traditional in a modern day sense. And there's always resistance, right? It could be family members, it could be friends, it could be your environment, it could be coworkers, it could be just the fear of judgment. What was it for you, and why? Like, you know, I kind of just asking you about the conversation with Matt. Like, is there a common theme of why you think like so many people don't ever get to that point of like pushing through, getting over that wall, like breaking through that barrier and doing, you know, really cool things like you're doing with this podcast, and also like what Matt's doing too?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Did you grow up playing sports?
I did. I played football in college.
All right. So I think that there's something, the sports angle, that I'll hit on, but I also really think that values are in short supply, and people who actually believe in their values and live their values is also in a shorter supply. So when you start to tap into what it feels like to lean into the things that you actually believe and put them out into the world and start creating things, it opens your mind to what you're capable of, and you just want to be around people who are also like that. So when you do establish your beliefs, things just become a little bit easier. And I think when you do start to come across other people who have a belief in themselves that they can do something, and not in an egotistical way, but that they believe that they can create something of value for other people, I think that you just like almost like magnetically want to be around those types of people that also bring that out. And I brought up the team sport thing too, because I mean, what are team sports? You believe that you guys are working for something, that you guys are working for a championship, or I mean, what's the point of playing sports if you're not working for the championship? So there's always that goal in mind that you guys are working towards something, and you need to establish trust, similar values in order to get there, systems to get there. And so in a team setting, that's like basically what last night was, is like kind of like bringing together these random people and all having different experiences, but all being able to play off each other's strengths. And I just think that men in particular are drawn to that like camaraderie too. Like where you want that. You're like hungry for some sort of mission.
100%. Like, dude, we need more masculine energy in this world, dude. Like, you know, in the best way possible, you know, masculine energy in terms of like, dude, as a society, like, you know, we've kind of gotten soft, right? And like, we need to start talking about that, right? We're in this world today where we're constantly being censored, or we got to think about what we're saying, and we don't want to piss people off, and we got to be politically correct, and this, that, and the other. We need, you know, men need to like stand up for what we believe in. You know, I'm reading this book called Wild at Heart right now, and it's like, you know,
great book.
Yeah,
reading it too.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. Like
the one thing that is just like, I read it and I was like, whoa, like, you know, every man needs like an adventure to seek, like, you know, I'm butchering it, but like an adventure to seek, like something to work on, and then like a beauty to love. And it's like, it is so true. And, you know, if you ask a lot of men if they can check those 3 boxes, or like are in pursuit of checking off those 3 boxes, because, you know, I don't have a beauty to love or anything like that.
We'll find her.
Yeah, right. We'll get
Maybe
there.
She's listening to the podcast.
Hey, if you're listening, shoot me a DM. No, but I think it's just really important that we surround ourselves with other men who are going to uplift us, but also challenge us to be better. Call each other out. You know, tell us when we need it, kind of like, you know, a kick in the ass or something like that. Like, there's not enough of that. It's all like, you know, we just want to say, oh, you know, you're doing a great job. You're doing this, that, and the other. That's the reason why I came down to Austin, was because I needed that kick in the ass. I needed those people like you, like Matt, like everybody there at the dinner last night to challenge me, right? Like, I love all my family, all my friends, and everybody up there in Philly. But there was a certain point where like I was doing a lot of things, but I wasn't being challenged in the way that I need to. It was like kind of like what we were talking about before we came up here. It was like, what got you here won't get you there. And I think, as men in society, we need to lift each other up, but also not be afraid to challenge one another.
Yeah. And that got brought up last night, and it was a really cool part of the night because it addressed this thing that you're talking about where it's like, I think men are looking for a challenge in terms of mission, but also friends who challenge them to act a certain way, to improve themselves, to carry themselves to a higher standard. And a lot of people get really uncomfortable when they are challenged. And I think that's more of a thing that they probably need to spend more time with and just like wrestle through themselves when you do get challenged. Like, what's your reaction? Are you a riser or a sinker? And I know like a lot of people that I've started to surround myself with here in Austin are risers, and they are willing to challenge you. There's definitely a certain amount of like people who are, there's a homogenous group of people that are here in Austin. They're all here looking for a challenge. So there can be a little bit of that bleed over of like groupthink, but I also think that there's a lot of people here who are willing to be like, yeah, I'm going to challenge you, impress you on that thought. And I want to like make sure that like, I'm not just letting you slip by with that. So there is something too, just like wanting to seek out a challenge. And I commend you as a young guy, kind of realizing that and wanting to come down to Austin. How old are you?
24.
24. All right, you and Matt are both 24. That's sweet. When did the light bulb go off for you that you wanted to pursue something different than kind of the corporate path? Because you've got Upspace going on, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, a bunch more, but you've pursued this path that's different than what most kids right out of college are pursuing. I think a lot of people tend to go the corporate route just to get experience, which is great. I went that route. But you chose right from the get-go, kind of just doing your own thing.
Yeah, so I was a junior in college in 2020 when COVID hit. And at that point, I was probably like at the lowest point that I had ever been. So I came off of, I tore my ACL. I played football in college. So I tore my ACL in 2018 season. So like, right before the season started, I'm starting at safety as a sophomore, worked my butt off. All of my freshman year, all off season to get to that point, having a great camp, week and a half. Literally, we've got a scrimmage coming up that Saturday, and just, tore my ACL. Boom, done. Whole season. Everything that I had worked for, just done. And that was a huge wake up call for me to not take what I had for granted. But I didn't realize that at the time. Like at the time I was going out and I was drinking and I was partying. I was like, I'm not playing on Saturday, so I can go out and, party with my friends on the baseball team and on the basketball team on Friday nights, and then come in, drunk like an asshole.
Right.
Wake my roommates up who have a game the next day, and like it just got to a point where I was just like not happy with the person who I was, just because I was like kind of just escaping like reality in that point. And that all led me to, I worked really hard in rehab, but I think I had some muscular imbalance issues when I came back. So I ended up actually getting like a really bad disc herniation in my back my junior year. So I missed like half the season, and the other half of the season I was just like fighting to stay, on the field for the first half of it, or for the second half of it rather. And then, I was going to physical therapy. I was doing all the things for my back, but like, again, like I was showing up to morning runs, I was showing up to lifts, but I couldn't do everything again. And it was just like, took me back to the time of like, man, like, am I ever going to, be a part of this thing? Like, I just felt like I wasn't contributing. And so like mentally, physically, like emotionally, like I just wasn't there. And then, I was taking some really hard classes, and that led to the second half of my junior year, when COVID hit. And honestly, it was probably the best thing that could have happened for me, because I was in so much pain physically that I was taking, ibuprofen like every 4 of them, like every 4 hours, like clockwork. Couldn't go to sleep without like taking a bunch of Advil, ibuprofen, melatonin, like just because like the pain was that bad. I couldn't sit in class for that long. And back pain is just terrible. Like there's like when you have nerve damage, like there's just nothing that messes you up more than that. And when you don't feel good physically, it carries over into all other areas of your life. So, you know, I was moody, I was irritable, I was just not a not a fun person to be around. And so like when the weekends came around, like I was just getting wasted. I was just trying to numb the pain. I was trying to, you know, escape my reality of like, you know, not being the person when I looked at, I didn't like looking at myself in the mirror because I didn't like the person who was staring back at me, but I didn't know how to change. It was like, again, like I was a product of my environment. I love my roommates to death. And when I had a great experience in college, but my environment that I was in there was not serving me in becoming the person who like I knew God wanted me to become. And so when COVID happened, I was kind of like, okay, this is rock bottom. You know, I have this injury. I'm not around my friends anymore. All of my family was back home in like our, you know, house that was very crowded. And, you know, I was like,
it's a crazy time for
everyone. It was a crazy time for everyone. And so what did I do? I mean, it's not like I just like got right to it and started on this personal development journey. It was like I was drinking beers with my buddies on Zoom, you know, at night, you know, because it was like that's what everybody was doing.
Yeah.
And couldn't go to the gym. So I was not doing my physical therapy stuff that I was supposed to be doing at home. And it was just like this cycle of like rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. And one day I woke up hungover in my parents' house and I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, what are you doing? Like, you know, you're a waste of space. Like you have all this potential. Like, and I knew that like God has these plans for me, but I was like, all right, yeah, but like not yet. Yeah, but not yet. Or like, I don't know where to start or I don't want to do the work. I had always had this idea to start a podcast, but I was like, you know, I don't have the equipment. I don't have the resources. People are going to make fun of me, this, that, and the other. So that was
all the fears.
So that was the resistance that was stopping me from doing it. But finally, like that same day where I was looking in the mirror and was just like disgusted with myself. And I was like, today was but there's not another day where I'm like taking full control of my life and my destiny and like my health. And because that was first, I was like, I need to get my health in order. And then everything else will start to fall into place. So I finally got some good physical therapy. Well, actually, backtrack a second. That same day, I'm talking about looking at myself in the mirror, my buddy sent me a post by Gary Vee because he was like, dude, like you should start a podcast. Like you should start a YouTube channel, do something. Because I would broadcast basketball games and lacrosse games in the off season. And I loved it. I was really involved in the media club, but I was like, you know, like I don't want to start my own thing. Like too much time, too much effort. Roommates will make fun of me or whatever. So he sent me a post by Gary Vee saying like, you know, you'll never regret the things that you do, like try and do and fail, but you'll always regret the things that you never attempted or like you never pursued. That for me was like, okay, like I got to figure this out. So like that day I went and I started like a new Instagram page and I started a podcast. I called it Days with Dom because I had no idea what I wanted to call it. But I was like, it gave me, it got rid of the excuse of like, I don't have a names and I don't have like a topic for it. So I don't know what to talk about. I was having everybody on, like you guys, Matt Choi on, like he was one of the first guys I connected with.
Really?
When I started on social media. He had like 2,000 followers. I had just started because I was playing football at the time. And so I reached out to him and he was like helping me out like later on in COVID as I was going back to school to play football. He really helped me out with that. But that for me was like the time where everything changed. As soon as I started the podcast, that created forward momentum. Like I got like addicted to it and addicted to having these conversations with people who I selfishly wanted to just talk to because like I need help. I was like, I'm a 21-year-old kid in the middle of COVID. I'm about to graduate. I don't want to go into corporate. I also don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life. Like my health is not great. So I was having intentional conversations with these people who were going to answer these questions for me. And the more I talked to these people, the more I learned, the more curious I got. It was feeding my curiosity. I started reading more books, listening to more podcasts, like just consuming more content, but then also like being actionable about like, oh, the way that we eat actually affects like the inflammation in our body. And oh wow, like when I cut out inflammatory foods, like my body, I actually feel much better. And my mental clarity is there. And so my back started to heal up. And then it was just like this progression of just like showing up each day and stacking one brick in front of the other. Because what else was I going to do during COVID? So like literally when I think back about it, I was like so robotic in my routine for that, however many months, but it was so necessary for me because it got me out of that environment of, I was a second semester junior about to go into my senior year with no idea what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew I didn't want to sit at a desk. My health was suffering, physical, mental health, brain health. My spirituality was at an all-time low. Like everything was just low. And if COVID had never happened, I would have never had that opportunity, and I would never be on the path that I am now. And like I could literally I get so fired up and like I get so emotional about it just because like if I think about it, if that never happened, I don't know where I would be. We wouldn't be sitting here together right now.
It's a painful thought to think about, but it seems like you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Like your heart is in what you're doing, and you found this thread to pull on that has drawn this amazing, almost just like destiny-like feeling that you're just doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is, at 24, it's probably such an awesome feeling. You probably fast-tracked a lot of things through going through those hard times.
For sure, but I also got a taste of the corporate world too. So I interned at a Fortune 500 company. And luckily, I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity because most people had their internships taken away and had to figure something else out during that like junior going into senior year summer. So I had that, and I wasn't even in the office. Like I was in. They sent me a laptop, and like I was in my basement sitting on a computer for 8 hours a day during COVID, like in the middle of the summer. I was like, this is awful. I was like, why are we having all these meetings? Why do I what is this so stupid? Like, you want me to listen to inbound sales calls and, make a PowerPoint on like, how they're performing? Like they all stink. Like, they all suck. Like this is boring. This is like pulling teeth right now. So at that point, after literally 2 days of the internship, I was like, this is not what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's not going to be doing this. So at that point, I did have the podcast. I was getting really into health and wellness and personal development. So that was, I'm very grateful I had that opportunity for that internship because it gave me a taste of what was out there that it gave me a taste of like what my path was going to be if I didn't like make a change and start to really be intentional with my time, with my actions, and really formulate a plan of what I wanted to do next.
Yeah, having that space to actually think about, or at least even experiment with some things that you otherwise wouldn't have the time to do is really, really important. And I think COVID provided that for a lot of people, me included. I'm interested in going back to the point where your friend texted you that Gary Vee clip, because it's so amazing what a little bit of encouragement or a little bit of just a reframe can do for yourself when a buddy sees something in you that you're maybe taking for granted and he texts it to you. I'm curious, what do you think he saw in you about like the way you approach the media stuff when you were doing the announcing that made him want to send that?
I think it's just energy. Like I've been really on like an energy kick recently, just like the energy that you want to receive into the world, like you have to exude that energy. Like you have to bring that. People aren't just going to like be attracted to you and what you're doing, walking into that dinner last night, right? It's like if one person, we all don't know each other. If, one person starts to like sulk and isn't super energetic, like everybody's going to feed off of that.
Vacuum.
Right, exactly. So you got to exude that positive energy. And I think what he saw in me was just how lit up I was when I was doing it. Like I loved, a lot of people don't like speaking in front of people. A lot of people don't like being on camera or in front of a microphone. Like I freaking love it. I like,
you're a natural, bro.
It's just repetitions, right? It's just like sports. It's just like going to the weight room. It's like, I was super freaking, dude, all the blooper clips I have. And even still, I pull out my phone to record something. I'm like, like, and I'm messing up. But I save those because I'm like, it's just funny to me. Like, you can share them and be like, hey, look, if you're afraid, I've got a whole album full of times that like I've messed up, you know, like nobody's perfect no matter what you freaking think. So I think he just saw the energy in terms, like, you know, how excited I would get like when I would be there, you know, in the auditorium and I'm doing the post-game interview with the kid who just hit the game-winning shot, and I'm just like freaking pumped up with like genuine energy. And I was also a tour guide in college. I was like
in Philly.
Yeah, at college. So like there was like the one thing that like I did do that I was like, all right, you know, whatever. I did get people.
That's like different.
That was different, right?
Yeah.
So that and the media stuff was pretty cool, but I still like didn't throw myself into it as much as I could have.
Yes.
But tour guiding, he also just saw me from an outside, and he was a tour guide too. And so he was like, dude, like I see the way that like you communicate with people, and I see like how excited you get about things on the microphone. And he was trapping sneakers out of his dorm room when we were in college. So he had like, you walk in his room, he's got just like boxes of Yeezys and like Jordans just stacked up against the wall. And I was so like interested in like entrepreneurship. And like, I'd always kind of been an entrepreneur, like going knocking on doors. Hey, can I mow your lawn? Can I shovel for you?
Right.
Things like that. But I was just interested in we were at a private liberal arts college. Like, you know, I'm grateful that I got to go there. I couldn't afford that whatsoever, but shout out financial aid. But we're at this super expensive college, and he was in my same major, international business, and we're freshmen in college. And he's like, yeah, I have no intention of going to work for anybody. He's like, I just want to, like, I'm just here to get my degree, and I'm going to work for myself. And at 18, 19 years old, I was like, wait, like then why are you even here? Like that was my thought. I was so interested in that. So I was just like picking his brain, asking him a question, and he just like noticed my curiosity. And so I think like just a combination of like the curiosity, the energy, and the enthusiasm that I brought to that kind of thing, and him just being like a content creator himself, like was like, yo, like, you know, this is fun. I think you'd be good at it. So like you should do it yourself too.
That's awesome. Yeah, hearing validation from people who see something that you don't see is really important. The second part of this question is, what did you not see in yourself that made you maybe like have that resistance around leaning into doing it fully, or just like slow yourself down? I know you're going through a lot like with the physical stuff, so maybe that was like part of it, but just curious, like was there something that you can think of that was holding you back from being like, oh, this is the thing I want to do. I just love doing this.
Scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
And kind of just like the way I grew up, and I love my parents to death. Like my mom's.
I met your mom.
Yeah, you met my mom. My dad is great too, and my mom is definitely like my rock. My dad is, we've had our ups and downs in our relationship, but I would say it's probably like the strongest it's been now. But growing up, I'm the oldest of 4 kids. My dad's a painter. My mom now owns her own business, and she's crushing it. But she worked for somebody as a physical therapist for 20 years beforehand, and she was very adamant about homeschooling us for the first couple of years of childhood. So I was homeschooled until 5th grade, sister until 3rd grade, other brother like first, and then the other one was too young, so he didn't get homeschooled. But they had to make sacrifices where my mom wasn't working as many hours. My dad's a blue collar worker. So, there was a lot of times like, we can't do that. We don't have the money for that, or, you can't go to this thing. It was just like, that scarcity of like, we don't have it, so you can't do it.
Right.
That kind of was ingrained in me and conditioned into me, subconsciously. And so just having the mindset of like, I don't have the equipment, or I don't have the resources, or I don't have the time, or all these like self-limiting beliefs that kind of stemmed from that like scarcity mindset that, not that I was raised to have, but that I had just like subconsciously been conditioned to as I had grown up.
Yeah. So what were the steps that you took, either intentionally or unintentionally, to start to rewire that way of thinking? Because it's such a powerful transition, moving out of that feeling that, I know I felt this when I was working my corporate job. I just kind of felt like, save money, like work up the ranks, and really like these are like the limits to what your potential is in in this, and I basically just accepted that. And so I think from my own experience, have rewired my thinking just through entrepreneurship and acting. But curious, like, what sort of steps did you take to start really reframing things so that you can have this abundance mindset and think that you can do cool things like start a business or start a podcast?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I don't know if there's like specifically one thing that like really like did it for me other than, it was like that taking that first step, like, and it's, I think that's the hardest thing, it's cliche, but it's like, the hardest thing is just taking that first step because it really is. You don't know what you need to do, what that first step is like. But for me, it was like, I had this thought of like, I need to start a podcast. Okay, and I made a list. I wrote out like, all right, what do I need to do to make this happen? I was like, okay, I need to figure out like how you create a podcast. So I literally like, I texted that same friend who texted me the Gary Vee clip, and I was like, yo, bro, do you know anybody who knows how to start a podcast? And he was like, yeah, here, like, there's Anchor, like just, create, you can create it on here. And so I was like, okay, so I get Anchor, and then, okay, like pick a name. I'm like, all right, I don't know a name, but I was like, oh, Days with Tom. Okay, whatever. It's the first thing that popped in my head. That's the name, right? Yeah. And then like, you just take that first action step, and then it creates that forward momentum. So I think just taking action on things as soon as they come to mind and like putting them into fruition and putting them like just taking action right away, that is ultimately like the most important thing that you need to do. Even now, when I get an idea for a piece of content, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is great. But if I don't film it like that day or like outline it, script it, or at least like take some sort of action to it, like it's not going to happen. And those clips that I'm always like, oh, you know what? I have an idea. I'm going to film this right now and post it as soon as possible. They always do super well because for whatever reason, I don't know, it's just like the universe like telling me like, hey, keep doing that.
Yeah.
But, it's just taking action as soon as you have like these thoughts or these feelings or emotions. As soon as you like the more you can decrease the gap between like you have the thought and you do the thing, that is like the most important. That is the most key factor.
Absolutely. And just those like little steps that you can take to create momentum. I was actually writing about this today, about the idea of feeling sorry for yourself is actually the most powerful emotional matrix there is in the world. And it's either powerful in a strong sense where it moves you upwards or it moves you downwards. So you're either an actor on that the feeling that you felt like, so probably the feeling that you felt when your body was breaking down and you were kind of in the rut, or you're a retractor where you continue to sink, you continue to go to the bottom of the pool instead of like reframing your thinking and just looking at things through a different lens. And the only thing that is going to make you rethink or reframe your thinking is movement and action. Like, it's just taking a step.
Dude, I was just talking about that with my other co-founders today about like just creating forward momentum in life. And for me, like to create forward momentum in my day, like the night before, I write out like, the 3 to 5 things. But first of all, what's that number one thing I got to do the next day that's going to be like move the needle for me in life, whether it be in fitness, business, relationships, like whatever else, like whatever that like main thing is that I need to do on that given day, writing that out the night before. And then it's like, okay, well then you write the one thing down and it's like, okay, and then you can think of a couple other things. And before you know it, I keep it to 3 to 5, big needle movers for the next day. And then I wake up and there's like 3 things that I got to do. I got to, 1, get some freaking light. I'm usually up before the sun, unfortunately. So like, just turn on all the lights, just start to reset my circadian rhythm. I get cold water on my face. So usually I'll jump in a quick shower. I'll just splash some cold water on my face, wake myself up, and then, chug big glass of water with electrolytes and get some sort of movement in. Sometimes I'll just like go outside in the grass and get my feet in the earth and just jump around. And then, I'll read some of the Bible, I'll read some scripture, and then I will, practice gratitude, ask the Lord to help me on my journey for that day. It takes like 15, 20, 25 minutes to start the day. And then I'm into it. If you can just find those little tidbits to create some positive momentum in your day, and you do that day after day after day after day, like you master the mundaneness and you just find what works for you to set yourself up for success that day.
Yeah.
Like it is a pathway to just a really forward trajectory. But you have to also understand that, like, it's like the aggressive patience from Andy Frisella. It's like, delay gratification, but take, action on every single day.
Yeah. I love what you were saying too, where you have like those 5 things, but it only takes like 15 minutes. So you kind of just like set the bar low. So almost intentionally, where it's like, all I have to do is get out and get sunlight, like, and then I can check the box, I don't think it should feel like a check the box item, but once you kind of establish it as your routine, it's your flow, but 15 minutes and you've wired yourself to then just be in go mode, which is the best feeling when you've accomplished a few things that really set you up to just continue to succeed. And Brett and I talk about this all the time. Sorry, Brett, for not being here. But we talk about it a lot, where it's like, dude, if you have something that's a non-negotiable that makes you be the best version of yourself, why are you not doing that every day?
Dude, 100%.
Like, you have to ask yourself that question. If this is going to make you feel the best, pursue the best, like do all the things that make you feel good, and you have a non-negotiable. For us, it was like, we were talking, and it was like, dude, a 1 mile run really sets me up to be the best person of myself every single day. Why are you doing a 1 mile run? Just, it's not that far. Or like a 1 mile walk.
Yeah.
Like it can make all the difference.
It's like, even if you run slow, 10, 11 minutes,
Run slow. Like go slower.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've kind of reworked some of my morning routine recently, where it's less about like emptying the tank and just like getting a crazy amount of work done and doing like a Goggins workout in the morning. And it's just like, dude, just like get in the flow of moving the body and like do some stretches and do some things that, like, maybe I'm just like, I don't really want to just push myself to the edge, but just be like have a measured approach and do 10 to 15 minutes of that. And then let that compound, like, okay, I did 10 to 15 minutes of that. Now I'm like actually ready to do something hard. Go do 10 to 15 minutes of like deadlifts or something like that. And then kind of just like try to make those like morning sessions quick, because it does set me up for a better day. And I think that when you can make it something that's accessible and easy, it lets you reach for more when you do have that extra energy in the tank.
Dude, Harry, I love that. It's all about small wins, right? Like, Eric Hinman is, a mutual friend. And when he was on my podcast, he's a goat, dude. We're talking about just like stacking your day with small wins. Like, nothing that he does is, well, I mean, besides like he does do like crazy workouts and things like that. So I shouldn't say
he's
this.
A madman.
He's a madman. But like, I spent a couple days with him out there in Colorado, and I was really just like observing how he operates in his day. And it's just like one small thing like into the next, and he's just hyper consistent with that every day. He's like, he wakes up, kisses his girlfriend, says hi to the dog,
Blaze.
Blaze, the man or the girl, sorry. My confirmation name is Blaze, actually.
Oh, for real?
So I always think of his name Blaze. But just like stacking a small win throughout the day. Okay. He making his espresso. He's like, that's a win for me. Like,
what a simple reframe.
It's like, when instead of like thinking of them as just like tasks that you have to do, like when you got out of bed, you made the bed, you drank some water, you got some electrolytes in, you went for a little walk. It's like, if reframing the mindset of like, I'm becoming the best version of myself right now so that I can give back to the world. We are all contributors to this society. Nobody can like change the world or make this world into what you and I believe like that it can be. We can't do that alone. But you have to show up as the best version of yourself. You have to get good sleep. You have to eat good food. You have to have that human connection. You have to drink water. You have to move your body. You have to do all of these things so that you can be the best version of you, and then you can pour into others, and then it's a domino effect.
Yeah,
that's how we can really start to uplift this society.
Yeah, and the momentum piece within the context of a day is so important too, Because when you do start thinking about all these things that you're doing as just wins, that makes everything that you're doing feel like there's some emotional response to feeling like you did something that was actually of significance. Like, I mean, making the espresso, all right, that's not like a win. Like, I feel like most people obviously aren't going to be thinking of that as a win, but if you can frame that in your mind as a win, then you've started to take that step to build momentum in your day in the beginning of the day when, you're trying to wake up, you're trying to get ready for the rest of the day, for everything else to just be easier and for you to feel established in the flow of things and just be able to keep hammering through stuff as the day goes on.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I'm not perfect by any means. Like I've had a lot of highs over the past. I graduated like a year and a half ago from college, and I made the decision, like, I'm not going to go into the corporate world. I'm going to move back home. I'm going to start my own business. Like, this is going to be great. Like, all these things. I'm on my high horse, said, my best. Went back and I fifth yeared. So I took a gap semester. My senior spring, I deferred. And in that semester, I got my personal training certification. I got my nutrition coaching certification. I interned at a digital marketing firm, which I actually learned a lot and was really grateful for that because it also gave me the opportunity to train or study for those exams, but also train really hard for my last semester of football. And it was like almost like a pause in like reality, right? Where like all my friends were going back to school, finishing up their last semester, going to work corporate jobs. And I was like, I'm working an internship for a couple hours a day. I'm training for a couple hours a day. Like I'm studying. I ended up starting a sports camp for kids in my town, which was awesome, which gave me, some money to, kind of just live because I wasn't making really anything with the internship and paying for those exams. But I was just finding a way. Like that has just been a mantra for me. It's just like, no matter what, find a way. That was just something that I would repeat to myself, that I repeat to myself every time things get difficult. I'm like, just find a way. There's always a way. And so like when I went out and I moved back home, all my friends are, they're moving out. They've got these corporate jobs and they're moving into, Philly and New York City and Boston and DC, wherever else. And I was like, me, like, I'm making no money. I'm starting my own business from scratch. Like I was training youth football players part-time at like a physical therapy place. And I was really just like a glorified babysitter for them. Yeah. And I was just like, I went from like, being on top of the world. And then I graduated and I moved back home and I'm starting to do all these things. And I'm like, real life is hard, like you got to put in the time, you got to put in the work. But I needed that time of like just really being humbled too. I was like, okay, like I'd been creating content. I was built my brand on like being a college football player and doing like day in the lives and things like that. I was interviewing a lot of athletes and things like that. And all of a sudden, like, boom, like my identity is completely shifted. And I had to like refine, like, okay, like who am I? What are my values? What do I want to offer to this world? What kind of content do I want to create? Why am I even creating content in the first place? How do I want to spend my days? What do I want my weeks to look like? All these things. It was a lot of ups and downs. Again, I was making no money. My health wasn't great. I had like I ended up realizing like I had like a ton of thyroid issues because I wasn't eating properly. All these things were just like, starting to pour on top of one another again. Meanwhile, I saw all my friends who from the outside, they looked like they were like crushing it. Right. And I was like, I am sitting here like in my twin bed at my mom's house, like with my desk 5 feet away, just trying to figure it out every day. And so people can see on social media, like, oh, Dom, like it looks like he's crushing it. He's starting his own business, do that and the other. Behind closed doors, I was a mess, man. Like mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, like it was right back to like where I was in COVID. And I was like, really, like this is where we are again. But putting myself into that season of discomfort and of the unknown, and then, getting linked up with Upspace and becoming a co-founder of that and, trying to maneuver that whole ordeal again, like just, there were so many highs and there's so many lows and there still are those days, but more often than not, I was waking up with like extreme anxiety every day. And, everybody's like, oh, like I'm diagnosed with anxiety or whatnot. I'm like, no, you're not. It's just a feeling, it's just like, it's just an emotion. Like you're not depressed. You don't have anxiety. It's just a feeling. It's just life. have highs, you have lows, you have peaks, you have valleys. Like it's just part of it, you know, in us being in our 20s, like arguably like that's when you're going to have the most amount of them, right?
Yeah.
But you just have to learn how to develop these skills and these practices and these mindset shifts and these habits and these routines that are going to get you back on track and just I think the most important thing people can do is just develop their own why. You know, it's like, it's very cliche, but like when you have a mission, when you have a why, and when you have core values that you live by, it's your moral compass in terms of how you live your life, who you spend your time with, the things you put in your body, the you know, how you choose to treat your body, the people that you're around, like all these various things. Once you start to do that boring inner work, you know, that seems like woo-woo or whatever, but it is so necessary because you'll eventually outgrow that. You know, personal development, we're always on a self-growth journey. We're always going to be doing personal development work, but you kind of graduate to, you know, like I mentioned Gary Vee. I'm like, love you, G, but I don't consume your content anymore because like I've outgrown it. Like I've made that first step. So then you just continue to elevate and you find new people to talk to and collaborate with and find different mentors and things like that. But to kind of wrap up this like rant, it's just like, be comfortable and okay with like that discomfort, but don't let it, you know, stop you, right? Like I've had those days where I just want to stop and I haven't, you know, been like super productive or didn't make progress. Like just know that every single person has those days, but it's like, you can have a bad day, but never two in a row. Yeah. Get up the next day and just put one foot in front of the other and create that positive momentum, that forward motion, because that is ultimately what's going to get you from where you are to where you want to go.
Yeah, 100%. Very well said. I'm curious about the decision to defer the senior spring semester. Was that a tough decision to make? I imagine it was.
Dude, so my senior spring semester started on January 25th. I'm sitting at my dad's kitchen counter on January 24th. Literally, I have class the next day. I'm supposed to go to college that day. And I'm sitting there at my dad's place. And my buddy, like my best friend from college, texted me and said, like, yo, like, I'm not going back. And like, he was supposed to be my roommate that semester. He's like, I'm not going back. Like, I'm deferring. I'm going to come back and play ball at the last semester. And I was like, oh, you know, like I wish I could, but like I can't do that because like just self-limiting beliefs, like telling myself these things. I was like, you know, my financial aid's gonna get all messed up, and I'm gonna have to start paying loans back, and this, that, and the other. Just giving myself every reason as to why like I couldn't do it. But then I look back at like my first 3 years, my 3 years playing. It was like my freshman year. You know, I grinded. I played a little bit on special teams, but you know, you're not really playing much as a freshman. Sophomore year, tore my ACL, didn't play at all. Junior year basically was a wash because I was injured for most of the season. And then senior season got canceled because of COVID. So I was like, I really never even, you think you get 4 years, but it was just like, you know, taken out from under the rug from me. In a sense, like I don't like to play like the blame game or anything like that. But I was like, this was like my life, what I was super passionate about. And I felt like I would have had a lot of regrets if I just went and graduated and those two words, like what if, like really scare the crap out of me. And I don't want to look back on my life and say like, what if I did that? So a lot of my friends who tell me now, they still say, man, I wish I would have went and played that last semester. But for me, I just felt like I had unfinished business. And there were also just things in life that I wanted to kind of just figure out and take that time to like take a step back and see like, you know, again, like what do I really want for the rest of my life? So I literally looked up like all the college.
This is on January 24th.
This is January 24th. I looked up on the college website. I was like, how do I defer a semester? And I found the link and I found the form. I didn't even tell my parents. I just like took a leave of absence, closed my laptop. And I'm like, Dad, I'm not going back. And he was like, what? I was like, I'm taking a semester off. And my dad just being such a chiller, he was like, all right, cool. And he's like, you still gonna play ball? And I was like, yeah. He was like, all right, cool. And like, so he was on board with it. I'm actually the first one on my dad's side of the family to go to college.
That's awesome.
So he was proud of me no matter what.
Yeah.
But my mom, she supported me. I called her. She supported me in my decision. And she asked me like, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. So,
Yeah.
I didn't have an internship lined up. Like I didn't know I wanted to become start as a personal trainer and do nutrition coaching and all these things. But literally 2 days later, no, I'm sorry. I had somebody who I connected with, a couple months back say like, hey, if you're ever looking for an internship, like, reach out. And for whatever reason, I was like, oh, I got to reach out to that guy. Shot him a text that day. And he was like, yeah, dude, like, let's talk tomorrow. 2 days later, like I'm starting with like the digital marketing internship. And then I had a conversation with a friend of mine and she was like, have you ever thought about like becoming a personal trainer? And I was like, no, but you know what? Like, I'm going to look into that. I think that day I literally like bought the exam books and started studying for the personal training exam. And so all these things just like started to fall into place. And my favorite book of all time is The Alchemist, and the quote of like, when you really want something, the whole universe conspires to like, help you achieve it. And that for me was like, whoa, like I don't know like what I wanted. I don't know what I'm searching for, but like just having the courage to, do the uncommon thing, things will eventually like fall into place. Like when you're open for them or open to them to help you, in your journey.
Yes. It must be cool for you now looking back at that time and seeing the seeds that you planted then that have now kind of turned into what you're doing now. Mm-hmm. And then also just that concept of finding a way where you didn't really know what you wanted to do. You're doing a digital marketing agency and your personal training, like those things don't really go together. But then you have you sitting here today and it actually kind of makes a lot of sense that you're doing what you're doing today. And I would encourage people to, listening to this, it's like, you don't really need to know what steps 3, 4, and 5 are to make a change. It's like, sometimes you just need to put yourself like out there, give yourself an empty canvas and just try some stuff and see how it all comes together just through your own interest in the way that you approach, like just finding out what the next thing is. And sometimes it's a force function where you're like, I just need to make money. I'm going to get this digital marketing agency thing.
You got to do something.
You're right. Like I need to like put some money in the bank, or it's just like your overall ambition and drive to do something you like, which is like the podcast for you. Yeah. So it's cool seeing it all come together and connect the dots in that way. And it seems like you've really formed strong belief in yourself, but also just like what you want to see in the world through that like tough period where there was some friction, some uncertainty, some doubt. Like you actually wrestled with those things at an early age that's helped you just like be like, no, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this.
Yeah. I'm not like a positive affirmation, like manifester or anything like that. But I did realize that, like there's so many people like, we don't know how to take compliments. It's like, oh, I'm just trying to get like you, or like, no, like it is what it is. Like, no, like I have a mentor who taught me to be like, no, like you like accept those things, like listen to what people are telling you that you do well and be like, and take that into consideration. So like that was a huge mindset shift for me where, I started being like, somebody gives me a compliment, I'm like, thank you, I accept that. But also like, how could I improve, or how could I be better? So it's like taking note of like what people and like also like what trends keep popping up. You say, hey, you're pretty good at this thing. And then somebody else tells you that you're pretty good at that thing. And pretty soon it's like, okay, well maybe I should be doing more of that thing. Right. Like I actually stopped podcasting for a couple months because I was like, I'm going to go all in on, my personal training and coaching business while simultaneously like building this startup. And it was like, no, like I realized like, the thing that I really loved and enjoyed doing was like having the podcast conversations, creating the content. And then those two things, once I get back to them, it was like, oh, I'm getting more clients. Oh, like we're getting more brand awareness and we're making more connection in the startup. And like, ultimately, like, I only work with one client still because I'm all in on the startup and building my own personal brand and how all these two things tie together. But it's just like, do the thing that lights you up, even if it's not the thing that is most lucrative at the time right now. Because I I could drop everything I'm doing and be like, hey, I'm going all in on coaching or training or doing whatever else it is. Like, I don't want to do that because I see with my mission to inspire, empower 100 million people to become the happiest, healthiest, just best version of themselves. Like, I got to use my social media channels. I got to use these platforms to reach more people. Like, I can't do that just, training somebody one-on-one or having, 5 calls a day one-on-one. Like, it can be great, like, lucrative wise, but I'm like, I can spend an hour creating this post and then that can reach, potentially millions of people with just one post. I'm like, that's what I got to do more of. And like, that's what, like, I feel like God's using me to do. He's like, yo, you would be doing the world a disservice if you don't show up each and every day. Like, I read the Daily Stoic every day, and like yesterday, like the prompt was from Ryan Holiday, and like Marcus Aurelius was like, why are you dreading getting up in the morning when like this is what you were supposed to do? As humans, you're supposed to get up and work hard and try to contribute to a better society, right? And so for me, I'm just like, okay, I'm so like in love with life and what I get to do on a daily basis that sure, there's days where I'm tired and I don't want to get up. We were out later last night and like a tough workout. Like, I wake up, I'm like, oh man, I'm tired and I'm sore. But like, I got to do the work. People need me. When you think of it that way, it's kind of like, how would people react like if you were just, if you were gone, if you just, unfortunately, if I died like today, what kind of, we talked about legacy last night, what kind of legacy do you want to leave? And it's not an egotistical thing, but for me, it's just like, I think, as a society right now, we need a lot of help, and we need people like you and Brett and me and all those guys that were there last night and all the people down here in Austin. Like, we need to contribute to our own personal missions that tie together in this whole big mission of just making this world a happier, healthier place.
Dude, totally. It's so true. Just having the idea in your head that, you doing something for yourself is framed the right way, selfless. Like it makes you able to, if you're investing in your, the content that you're making, you love doing it and you're putting the best stuff out there and it's reaching more people and touching more people, that's a good thing. One thing that came up in my conversation with Matt earlier was this idea of him having a coach or a mentor. And I think it's really lost on a lot of people. He was talking about it in the sense of like, he wanted to become more fit and focus on his health for a full year. So he hired someone to help him do that. And I think a lot of men in particular, I'm just speaking from the men's perspective, they think that they can get through the early part of their 20s without having really, really strong mentors or coaches or people to serve them during that phase of their life to help them level up. And I was that guy, totally didn't really seek out mentorship, didn't seek out coaches, and suffered because of it, or in the sense of like, I didn't challenge myself in the way that I should have. And I think it's amazing that you went out and just, you sought out a mentor who can help you level up in, what was he a mentor for? Just like life coach or business coach?
So yeah, kind of just like life and
sounding board.
Yeah, kind of just like a sounding board, So it's guy Chase Tuning. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all. He's a really cool podcast called Ever Forward Radio.
Okay.
And I found his podcast through a friend like early on when I started podcasting, and then it was at a time in my life, a couple months out of graduating college, and I just saw that he had posted something like, "Hey, I'm looking to work with a couple people. I haven't done this in a couple of years, but I'm looking to work one-on-one with some people who are, looking to, essentially just like improve your quality of life, make progress on projects and whatever else." And I actually hired him because I was like, I want to grow and scale this, training business. And then through working with him, I was like, you know what? This isn't actually what I want. And so then it became like, okay, how do I just focus? Like, how do I do the inner work to, find out what my mission is, what my why is. And so it was like, for the first year, it was a lot of doing just like that inner work and finding out like, who I am at my core, what my values are, what my beliefs are, what do I stand for, what do I stand against? And then, it just so happens like he's got a very successful podcast and he's got a podcast agency. So now a lot of it has been like, hey, like I got really clear on what I like, on who I am and what my mission is and what are the things that I need to do on a daily basis in order to like contribute to that mission, in order to move the needle, in order to make progress and all these things in my life. And now it's like a little bit more tactical, a little bit more strategic, you know, growth focused. Okay, like how do I connect with these people? How do I reach more people? This, that, and the other. So for me, it was just like somebody to listen to me and really to just like provide feedback, where like the things I was telling him is like, you know, it sounds like you want something a little bit different. And if I didn't have that, you know, I might have eventually realized it, but it would have just taken me a long time. So the concept of, you know, like we're talking with Matt and, you know, Alex Hormozy and a lot of people who say this, it's like, you know, you're going to pay for things either way, with time or with money. So at the time I really couldn't afford it, but again, I found a way, right? I found a way to make it happen. I was living at home. My expenses were really low. Granted, like I was breaking even like pretty much every month, but it was so foundational and necessary for me. But you know, so many people think they can do it on their own, and it's like you just waste so much time. And it's like, okay, you want the abs, you want the six pack, like, you know, are you gonna just keep doing random, you know, crunches at the gym and not be consistent with your diet? Or are you just going to hire the coach and start doing the work? Like the answers are all out there. And when you have that like investor mindset, that abundance mindset of like, you know, I'm going to spend this money, but like, I'm going to get this X, Y, and Z back to me. And then I'm going to keep like investing into myself, my business, my relationships, whatever else it is. If you can start to have that kind of mindset, realizing that like, okay, I'm spending intentionally because I know this thing is going to get me where I want to be in life. That is a huge mindset shift that I think everybody in their 20s needs to hear.
Yeah. The idea of having a coach too, it just, like you said, you're either spending time or money going through these problems, and having someone who can just create the boundaries for you to be like, no, this is like just not what you need to be focusing on. Focus on this, do these steps. It makes the process of getting to where they are that much more easy. It's more of an effort game as opposed to trying to be cerebral about it and like think through all the different things that you could be doing that are kind of a waste of time. I would just encourage anyone who's like just trying to level up, just find the right coach. I'm curious what you did, or how you think about maybe like the next phase of like your evolution. Like, do you think you'll find a new coach to get you to that new level, or do you feel like, you know, you kind of have the person that you need to keep going with?
Yeah, so I'm working with him for this year, and it was kind of like when I agreed to work with him, it was like, you know, for a year, because I think like when you have that time frame too, and it's like, you know, it's just like a contract or whatever, you ride it out and you assess at the end of it, you know, do you want to keep going or whatnot. So for me, I'm going to work with him for the rest of the year, and you know, I look forward to, you know, we have a monthly call, and then there's like a group call that we do as well with like a guest speaker and whatnot. And yeah, so I'll do that until the end of the year. And then
Love it.
If I feel like, you know, I think I'll always have some sort of coach or mentor or whatever else it is, like, and it might be for something like specific at the time. If, you know, maybe I'm like, okay, I'm going all in on YouTube for the next like 6 months, right, and I'll hire somebody who's done it before me, who's going to be able to teach me and help me with that. So, you know, I don't know, but in some way, shape, or form, I will always have somebody. I will always be investing in somebody to help me, because I feel like that is like the most important thing you can invest in, whether it's like a fitness coach or you know, a business coach or like whatever else it is. Like if you think you can just do it on your own, like I said, like, you know, you might be able to get there, but it might take you a lot longer. So why wouldn't you just fast track the process?
Yeah. I think it's really smart of you to have, and I don't know if you did this intentionally or unintentionally, but put a time horizon on it too, to just give yourself a natural breaking point to reevaluate the relationship, make sure that you can like talk through anything that you want to continue to work on with him. So I think that's very impressive and just like a good thing to have in those types of relationships. So you just like naturally have a breaking point if there is a reason to leave.
Yeah. And there's different seasons of life too, for sure. Like I have a running coach and I haven't ran in, you know, a month, a little over a month, but still being able to work with him because he's, you know, he's been an ultra marathoner, he's done high rocks, he's done all these things. So just being able to kind of update him on my progress as I'm continuing to get healthier, and ask him questions on diet and mindset and things to do in the off season. And he's been programming, like assault bike workouts and cross training and all these other kind of things. Like for me, like I've been in the fitness industry. Like I'm constantly reading, I'm constantly learning, I'm constantly like I'm obsessed with like health and wellness and fitness. But like I still have a coach myself, just because like running is still relatively new to me, and I'm always just trying to learn. I'm always trying to be a lifelong learner. And as soon as you stop learning, that's the moment you start losing. So I think just like developing that like mindset of becoming a lifelong learner in whatever way, shape, or form. Like I really want to learn how to play the guitar. I really want to like become fluent in Spanish. But I don't have the time right now. Like, not that I don't have the time, but my time and priorities are elsewhere. But it's like when I want to really go hard on like learning the guitar or getting fluent in Spanish, what I'm going to do? I'm going to freaking hire somebody that's going to help me learn how to do it.
Totally. I want to spend some time talking about what you're doing now, because I think what you're doing is really cool with the all the content stuff that you're putting out there. Plus, you have a startup of your own, which I think is a rare combo. You usually see people putting out content and then they're affiliating for other people's brands, they're doing other stuff, but you've kind of organically fallen into this role of creating really good content around health and wellness, but then you also have this business upscale where you guys are working on helping build communities around health and wellness brands. And it's just a really cool concept. So I'm curious just to understand like how you have gotten excited about the concept of starting that while still maintaining the ability to just like put that stuff out. Like, is you putting that stuff out there really just like the nature of you just loving doing it, and then you're like, oh, this is going to add value to what I'm doing later, so I just got to keep doing it?
Yeah, so I definitely do have a unique, I'm in a unique situation. So Upspace started.
Upspace. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all good. So it used to be called Upswing Fitness, and then we were like, you know what? Like we're more than just like a platform for fitness. So we're like, okay, Upswing. And then that was already trademarked. And we're like, okay, crap. So, we fell onto Upspace, which Upspace in the initial form was like, it's Upswing Fitness, but your Upspace is like your group that lives in the app. So like, there's a lot of confusion. I would still catch myself. So it's no worries. But Upspace, I was not there's not the original like founder of the concept, but I became a co-founder as I joined the team early on because I was so bought into the vision and the mission. And so our vision and our mission is to save the human race. Upspace is a cultural movement where we're on a mission to radically improve the health, the happiness, and the quality of life of the entire human race, right? And how are we able to do that? It's by creating a platform, a canvas rather. Like if you think about it, like, a paint, the artist takes the paintbrush and the watercolors and things like that, but he needs it and he creates the art, but he needs a canvas in order to, paint that picture or draw, whatever else it is, and to create that art, which, inspires people and captures people, right? Upspace is that canvas for health and wellness creators, leaders, people at the forefront making real change. We're that canvas. And then, myself, you guys, all the other health and wellness leaders out there, brands, creators, coaches, like they are the artists, right? And so we are like, use this platform to build your community, share resources, empower people, bring people together, through human connection, in-person community, virtual community. So Upspace ultimately is a community building platform entirely centered around health and wellness, because it's that virus effect, right? It starts in one place and then it grows and then it grows and then it grows and then it grows and then it keeps expanding. So we're starting like very small and trying to work with, health and wellness creators. Many of them are going to be down here in Austin, but it's like, what happens when somebody else sees that, like, oh, they're building a community, they're helping inspire and empowering other people. I want to get in on that. So it's like, it's not just like a platform. It's not just an app, but it's a real cultural movement. And we really feel like we can help save the human race, but we can't do it alone. We need, creators and change makers and people who are willing to ask why and be bold and, take down big pharma, take down big food, take down big tech, because they've had a freaking hold on our society for so long. And we need to take back what the word health really means, right? And so for us, and like for me specifically, it was like, I'm the more like front facing, like marketing, branding, content creation, partnerships, relationships person. Whereas I mentioned my other co-founders, they're more like operational systems, vision focused.
The perfect marriage.
So we have this perfect marriage. And for me, I was always like, before I became a co-founder, it was a couple months of like just being employee number one. I was essentially working for like nothing, but the more that I was like, oh no, the more I create content, the more people are interested in Upspace and what we're doing there. So for me, it's like the more content I create, the more people I connect with, brands, this, that, and the other, creators, the more ultimately like people just come into like this ecosystem. And like, we're not about competition. We're all about collaboration, right? So for me, it's like the more that I create, the more people come into this ecosystem, the more people know about our mission, the more people are like, hey, I want to be a part of that. I want to use that to build my community so that I can help other people. That is ultimately like how it's been able to work like so harmoniously. It's almost like, really, this is what I get to do. It doesn't seem real. Like I love it so much. And I do work with some brands and whatnot, but that was never like the goal as a content creator. It was like, I want to work with brands.
Right.
I was creating content because I freaking loved it.
Yeah.
And then people were like, hey, I want to pay you to promote my product or whatever. And I'm very picky about the products that I use and things that I promote. But that kind of just like was a byproduct of it.
Right.
Right. And so that has also brought other people into our ecosystem because, the brands have a lot, people are taking these things every single day.
Right.
You creating these products that people are going to take in every single day is going to make them be the best version of themselves. More people need to hear about them. Right. So it's just ultimately building this freaking movement to save the human race.
Yeah. I like the flywheel that you've got going on where
that's it. Flywheel, baby.
Every ounce of energy you put into one helps the other.
100%.
The idea that you guys have is really cool. When were you a part of the founding team with like the idea generation of it?
Yeah. So I joined the team literally solely based on like a vision. They were like, we have the vision for this thing. The two other co-founders, Sean and Chris, they literally like, Sean dropped out of college, invested like every dime he had into this. Chris had 2 kids and a wife, like quit his full-time job to go all in on this. And for me, like I just saw how passionate they were about this thing that wasn't even out there. It was literally a concept. And so I joined the team just based on like their energy, their passion, and their vision. And so, we've grown and we've evolved since then. So I became the 3rd co-founder about a little less than a year ago after just, working with the team, like, really, like, I was full-time, but I was really like part-time, but once I became a co-founder and really realized like, this is like my thing too, it was a complete mindset shift for me. But the whole concept was like, okay, personal trainers, Chris was a personal trainer during COVID. He was like, I'm sending out like Slack messages, like in a group. I'm collecting payments through Venmo and I'm creating workouts and stuff through like Google Sheets. It's like all these things. And, what were people craving and still do crave is community. Like that is really like such a powerful thing. Like I see what you guys are doing. You do the group runs and, what Matt's doing with Rise Runs, just all the things going down here in Austin. It's like you have these micro communities that are ultimately a part of this like big, huge community that is on a mission to like, ultimately like empower and take back health with the whole human race. So yeah, for me, like I wasn't part of like it wasn't like I have this idea, like I'm going to go act on it, but I came on early on because I believe so strongly in the mission.
I love it. What have you learned in the past year working with your 2 other co-founders? It's Chris
and Sean. We actually have we actually have 5 co-founders. So
Oh, wow.
2 of them are technical co-founders who came on in March, which have been like monumental, and we're so different.
It's good to build out the team, man.
100%.
You need the resources.
Yeah, if you wanted me coding this thing, like, it was just we would be in for some trouble. We'd be in for some trouble. So I think the biggest thing that I've had to learn is like just how to manage like not being managed. Like I went from having such a structure and a routine playing football and being in schools, like, okay, like I wake up and I go to class and I go to meetings and I go to practice and I do my schoolwork and then I give a tour and whatever. Everything is just so structured for my entire time of being in school. And then I got out of college and okay, I'm an entrepreneur now, like it's this sexy buzzword and like, people like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, but like, you don't really know what it takes until you actually just throw yourself in it. So for me, I was like, all right, like I have a blank calendar. How do I put things on this calendar that are going to, allow me to show up with the best energy, that are going to move the needle forward in like what I need to do in business and health and relationships and all these things. And I really, really struggled with that. And just like, I even still struggle with it sometimes. Like if I have a bunch of things on the calendar and then this gets canceled and this gets moved and whatnot, and I just have a bunch of white space, I'm like, oh crap, like what do I even do? Like I could do this or I could do that or I could go whatever. So for me, it's just been learning to just take action and do things and figure out like, okay, what are the most highest leverage things that I need to do? But really just like, yeah, figuring out like how to build a structure and a schedule when nobody's telling me like, yeah, I need to be on a computer from 8 to 5 every day.
Yeah, it's a serious challenge, but one that pays off over time. It takes time. Like I feel like when I was going through it, I was expecting the next day to like it would just be natural, just be able to like make my calendar perfect and like fill it all up with high value things, and it's just not the case. Like you really need to build that cadence into your life and kind of accept some level of flexibility in some days where maybe you get the top 1 or 2 things done and things get canceled and you just kind of have to flow with it. Like there's got to be some malleability to the structure that you put in place when you're an entrepreneur.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So I'm curious, your move down to Austin, was that more personal or was that for the business stuff? Because I can see obviously both, they're probably both, right? But
yeah, definitely both. I came here for the first time in February of 2022 with Sean, who's one of my co-founders. We came down here for an event, for a retreat, and I met a bunch of really cool people like over at Squatch, and I had just never seen or like been in a place like here where everybody was just so motivated, so driven. We're asking, different questions. Like, when you meet somebody up in like the Northeast, it's like, hey, who are you? And what do you do? And down here it was like, what makes you tick? Like, what's your vision for life? What do you want to get out of this trip? Like all these questions. I was like, whoa, like I've never been asked these kind of questions before. And just the way that people like were going about their days, living life down here, I was like, I think I want to move down here.
Yeah.
And then I did it. I didn't, but I came back in September of that year, stayed for a little bit longer, connected with more people, and I just had another awesome experience. And then came back again for 2 weeks this past March with my co-founder Sean. Again, we actually stayed with Noah over in his apartment. Shout out Noah. Stayed with him for 2 weeks. And
I think that's when we first met.
That was.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, the next time I come down here, like I'm moving. So from there, like I just made a plan. I'm like, I'm going down at the end of June, like in July. And I just had that on my calendar and I started like speaking that into existence. And for me, it was like Sean lives in Malibu. Chris lives in Philly still. And then our 2 co-founders, one's in Atlanta, one's in Oregon. So we're kind of all spread out. But for me, I need to be around people. I need to be doing this kind of stuff. I need to be around other creators. I need to surround myself with that kind of energy and just like get the word out about like what we're trying to do, right? And this thing that we're building. And also just for me personally, professionally, just to be challenged, like just to be called out, to see, okay, what are these people having success here? Like what can I learn from them? There's just so many just doers down here, and I wanted to surround myself with them. So definitely personally, professionally, business wise, like it was a little bit of everything. And I think it was just the best thing that I could have done. I've only been here for 8 days, but I'm excited to be connected with people like you.
Yeah, Austin's a special place, man. There's a lot of cool stuff happening here. And I feel like unless you've been here and experienced it, all you do is hear about it and you're like, it can't be like it can't be all cracked up like what everyone's talking about. But there is some element of this just communal and collaboration in the DNA of Austin that I did not experience in the Northeast. I also wasn't looking for it, but there's something about the people here where a lot of them are very similar. A lot of them are coming from a different place, searching for something. And they're a lot of times on a mission and still haven't necessarily found like or they found the thing, but they're still looking to figure out how to make that thing happen. And so there's just a lot of people out here who are like really interested in like that growth mindset and figuring things out and building stuff. And I imagine it's kind of like what it was like to be in Silicon Valley. I wasn't in Silicon Valley when it was the tech boom, but like I imagine it's kind of similar where it's like people down here, but it's more in like the health and wellness space, the wellness side of things, where it seems like there's just this amazing community of people that are coming together, and they're all in kind of the Austin area.
Yeah, 100%. It's very special, and that's the reason why I came down here. It's because I saw what I was able to do in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Versus what that might have took me 5 months to make the kind of progress that I was down here in 2 weeks, just because there's so many people just, living right next door who are going to help you get from, where you are to where you want to be. So I'm just like, you got to go to that energy. You got to go to those environments, right? Like, yeah, and yes, I do believe like you can create them in different places, because Austin, obviously it started with some people who, built like this community and this place up to what it is. But for me, I was just like, there's so many people that are in alignment with with my mission in life and, what I'm trying to accomplish and what I want to give back to this world, that like I got to be in that place. It's a really special place.
Yeah, it was cool seeing you and your mom too at Squatch the other day, and just getting to meet her and seeing that you guys took the road trip together. That must have been pretty special for you.
It's something I'm going to remember for the rest of my life, and I'm so grateful for, driving from Philly to Nashville to Hot Springs, Arkansas, and then Arkansas to Austin, spending a couple days here. It was really special. And, she's got her own business. She's got 2 dogs at home. She's got 3 other kids. Like, I know she gave up a lot and sacrificed a lot to take me down here and get me situated. But I'm the oldest of 4 kids. So for her, it was very special. And for me, it was special too.
Do you find that role as being an older sibling to play into how you view just helping other people? Because I know I'm an older brother, and it definitely has helped me establish a want to actually like be a leader and set a good example.
Yeah, totally. And like I'm the oldest cousin too, so like everybody's like
everyone's looking up to Dom.
Everyone's looking up to me. So like I know that no matter what I do, like even if you don't think they are, like people are watching. No matter if you have like if you have kids, or if you're a big brother, or if you create on social media, whatever else, like people are always going to be watching you. And for me, I want to set a good example for my brothers and my sister, and I want to show them, you don't have to live in the same like you don't have to live in our hometown forever. You don't have to go and work the same jobs that our like aunts, uncles, cousins, like grandparents have worked. Like you can do whatever you want in this world. You can go, move halfway across the country. You can move halfway across the world. Like you can do anything, and I want to just be that role model for my siblings, for my cousins, for anybody who follows me on social media, to just be like, you don't have to be, you don't have to do the same thing that your parents were conditioned to do, your grandparents were conditioned to do, or what you think your like destiny is, or what you're meant to do. If like you have that thing that you want to do, like just go out and do it, no matter how scary it is. Like you just find a way. And that's like why I love documenting so much on social media, is just because like I want to be that role model, that big brother to whoever else may need me to be.
Yeah, I really admire that sense of responsibility around setting a good example. I think that is what our society is lacking. People who are willing to set a good example. That's leadership in itself, and just hold yourself to that higher standard. Is there anything you feel like you're still growing into in your life? I mean, obviously, I know you as a person. You're a growth minded person, but it seems like you've from 22, 21, when you were kind of going through that hardship, to now have experienced so much growth. So like now you're at a point where you've moved, you've recalibrated. What are the next areas that you want to fall into and just continue to see that growth come in?
I'm very focused on quality of whatever it is. Well, like everything in life is hyper focused on quality. I've been very focused on like quantity for the past like 3 years, in terms of like, I want to post like, one podcast a week, or one post a day, or for a period of my life, it was like, I'm trying to gain weight to play football. So I need to like track what I'm eating to make sure like I'm eating enough, and just really focusing a lot on like quantity for a while. And now I'm just like, I'm so focused on quality of everything, in terms of like, I want to build out like a quality week. And like that starts with building out like a quality day. And that is, the quality of my workouts. Like I don't focus so much on like how much weight I can push or how many reps I can do, but it's like, what's the quality of my reps? I don't focus on how much like I'm eating on a given day, but it's like, what is the quality of that food that I'm eating, right? Like I don't need to spend 2 hours like praying and meditating and reading scripture every day, but it's like what is the quality of that I'm reading, and then like, am I actually taking that and applying it to my daily life, and not just checking the box of like, okay, I read the scripture today. It's like, no, what is like that one thing that I can take and then go like apply to my day. So for me, it's like I've mastered like the quantity side of things, and now like business, relationships, fitness, like spirituality, like everything is just hyper focused on putting out like, yes, still quantity of things, but how do I make it even better quality in all facets of life?
Dude, I love that answer so much, because that's kind of like the next level where, I think a lot of people set a lot of audacious goals for themselves, and some people get there and do it. Like one that comes to mind is like, oh, I'm going to read like this number of books each year, but like how much did you actually apply?
Right.
So there's something to focusing on. Like volume is very important when you're getting started, and then making that shift to quality is what gets you that next level. So it's very impressive that you have that mature approach to be like, this is what I'm going to be focusing on. And I love that answer, man. I would love for you to give a quick challenge to the Meat Mafia audience, a call to action, something that you think our audience should hear, just to give them something to do and take action on.
I'm gonna give something that, because I don't want to be a hypocrite. So I want to give something that one of my mentors and friends challenged me to do a little over a year ago, that really was small, but really like instrumental in being my North Star for what I ultimately want to accomplish in life. And that's take out a piece of paper, sticky note, iPhone note, no iPhone notes. Take out like a sticky note, a notebook, whatever else it is, pen to paper, right? Like, and write out your 5 core values. And then once you figure out your 5 values, you're going to write, what do I stand for? And then you're going to write that out. What do you stand for? What is your mission in life? Why do you think you exist? What do you want to do? Like when Gravedigger calls your name, what do you want to have given to the world? So, what do you stand for? But also, just as important is ask yourself, what do you stand against? And so I wrote out my core values. I figured out, what I stand for, but like that one, what do you stand against? I really had to think about that.
That's a really powerful exercise to go through. When you said that earlier in the podcast, I was like, circle back to that. That's a really, really powerful thing to solidify in your own framework when it comes to framing your beliefs. Like, what will you just not accept?
Yeah. So that's my challenge to the Meat Mafia audience is write down your 5 core values, write down what you stand for, write down what you stand against, and put them somewhere where you could see them. Like for me, I put them right above my desk. So every time I sat down at my desk every day, first thing I saw was those core values, what I stand for, what do I stand against, and you just continue to read those, and every single day you can just get a little bit more clear, and you ingrain them into your mind, and it just is your guiding light.
Dude, I love it. I love that call to action so much, and also just appreciate you, man. Very impressed with everything that you're doing and the challenges that you're trying to tackle, and just the vision that you have for everything that you're doing is totally from the heart, and just really appreciate that you're down in Austin now so we can hang out more. So pumped up. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so pretty much everywhere. Instagram's probably the best way to reach me. It's just my name, Dominic Fusco, at Dom Fusco. Was taken, unfortunately. But then you can, my podcast is Pure Ambition. Find that anywhere where you listen to podcasts. YouTube, it's my name, Dominic Fusco. TikTok, Dom_Fusco. But reach out to me on Instagram. Always looking to connect with people, and yeah, that's probably where I'm hanging out the most.
I love it. Are you on Threads yet?
I'm on Threads.
All right,
yes,
nice.
so I'm
You're
on
ahead
Threads.
of me.
Dude, you guys would crush it on Threads.
We got to get over there.
Oh my
this
gosh,
weekend.
man. Just take what you're doing on Twitter. Just put it right on Threads.
100%. 100%. Dom, appreciate you, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Harry. Appreciate it, bro.